For generations, the mafia has proved that crime does pay. The mob has made untold billions out of its rackets: extortion, gambling, drug running and prostitution. And our fascination with these American crime families has never been greater. The phenomenally successful television show The Sopranos tells it all. But in real life, these gangsters are even more ruthless, more violent. And nowhere is it more evident than in New York, home of all the big mafia families. For decades, the good guys, the cops and the FBI, were fighting a losing battle against these mafia clans. But now they may just be winning. And the current trial of mob boss John Gotti Jr. could be their biggest victory yet. There's even talk of the unthinkable, the death of the mafia. He's head of America's notorious Gambino crime family, and the cops want to nail him for good. But John Gotti Jr. is not going down without a fight.
John Gotti told him to do everything he did.
Just ask his mum.
And John Gotti is what, innocent?
Oh, God, can you believe this? Yes, he is, honey, he is, okay? For the fourth time. Yes, he is.
Each day, Mama Gotti dutifully makes her way to New York's federal court to support her boy on trial for murder and racketeering.
And he's not a murderer? Never whacked anyone? Never ordered people?
No, honey, he didn't. You know, he may be a little bastard at times, but no.
Is he a pimp?
No, he is not. Have a nice day.
The most notorious of those arrested early this morning is John A. Gotti, the son of now deceased John J. Gotti.
It's a landmark case that could finally bring down the American Mafia, and it's the best show in town.
Sit in on John Gotti Jr.'s trial, and it's like you're on the set of some over-the-top send-up of the mob. But you cannot write this sort of stuff. Gotti Jr.'s former best mate has turned rat, which means he's the star witness against Gotti. Today he was giving evidence on yet another mob murder when Gotti was seen to mouth the words, "I'm going to kill you." His mate replied, "You got something to say to me?" Which in turn caused Gotti to explode, yelling at the turncoat, calling him a punk and a dog. Just another day in the trial of a New York mafia boss.
The demise of the Gottis has been a long time coming. It began 15 years ago when John Jr.'s dad, known as the Dapper Don, was sentenced to life in prison for, among other things, 13 murders. He's now dead, and business may not be what it was. But the Gambino family, like the rest of the mafia, is still feared.
They are killers, they are knee breakers, they are extortion artists, they are arsonists, they are racketeers, they are really bad people.
At one time, virtually all these restaurants were mafia-owned.
Ernest Volkman was born and raised in the heartland of the mob.
And they had some legendary eaters.
He's brought me to New York's Little Italy, where the Gottis once ruled.
Mafia was very heavily infiltrated into this area. This was their comfort zone. This was their home base.
As an author, he documented the all-powerful influence the mafia wielded over this city through fear and violence. Now, he's charting its fall.
They no longer have that system of racketeering that dominated and controlled entire industries. They no longer have that nexus between politics, business, and crime that made them really, really dangerous for so many years.
From its earliest days, the mafia traded in extortion, prostitution, illegal gambling, and drugs. All run on violence and the constant threat that anyone who stood in their way would be quickly disposed of. How many murders did you witness?
Over a dozen, that I was present when it, happened in front of me.
How were those people killed?
Brutally. They were brutally slain.
And you've also meted out a lot of violence.
I've hit a couple of people with baseball bats in my time.
Henry Hill was what they call a wise guy, immortalised in Martin Scorsese's acclaimed film Goodfellas. Ray Liotta played Henry, a young man seduced into a life of brutal crime by the status and wealth that came with being a gangster.
45, 50, 60,000. It's gonna be a good summer.
These were the glory days for the Mafia.
I'm proud of you now. That is a lot of money for a kid like you, all right?
At your best, how much were you worth? How much money did you bring in?
Probably for myself, I don't know, $50, $60 million.
$50, $60 million? Where is it?
Slow horses, fast women, and stupidity.
But times have changed. It's now the good guys' turn. Men like undercover FBI agent Jack Garcia have managed to beat the mob at their own game, and it's made him a marked man.
They have a propensity for violence. This is the fear that they instill in others. So what happens is you just got to be alert, never give them the opportunity. But of course, whenever I travel in the city, I make sure I'm always packed.
So really, you're carrying a gun right now?
But let's just say if something was to go down, I'm ready.
Jack Garcia is perhaps the bravest and most unlikely looking undercover FBI agent in history. But this big man pulled off a very big act. For more than 2 years, this Cuban-American had the mob convinced he was Jack Falcone, a crim and an Italian.
I had to learn all your basic thing. I felt like in My Fair Lady, like Mr. Higgins, you know, I was like, instead of the rain in Spain flows gently in the plain, I was, hey, how you doing? Forget about it. Minky, hey, what these and the those, you know what I mean? Because they do sound like that, and they do say forget about it all the time. And it's one of those things that I wanted to convince them. I mean, I was believable. Not once did anybody say, this guy ain't an Italian.
That guy never showed up. The guy that got caught, though, he was supposed to show up?
Jack risked his life every day infiltrating the feared Gambino family, once headed by John Gotti. Here, wearing a wire, he records every word as the gangsters discuss a mob murder.
Here's what I'm going to tell you. They're lucky. I'm telling you from their Wall Street man. Now, you know David Valmont? Yeah,
Jack's cover was this seedy strip joint in the Bronx. He pretended to be part owner, but the package wasn't complete without the Rolex, the Italian suits, and of course the Hummer. But even with the best props in the world, he knew one slip-up and he'd be dead.
There are no second takes, so whenever you open that mouth of yours, you better be on the money. And if you lie, you're gonna die. It is just as simple as that.
Jack pulled off the performance of a lifetime. So convincing, Gambino's local boss, Greg DePalma, offered him the ultimate mafia honour, what's known as being a made man.
That means you're a made guy. That's how they say it. I mean, you want it, right?
Yeah, of course, man. I'm honored for that. I'm even honored that, you know, I will never let you down either.
Greg DePalma, who made that offer, was arrested along with 35 gangsters. But Jack now lives with a mob death threat, a $250,000 contract on his head. What was Greg DePalma's reaction when he learned who you were?
I walked by him and I looked at him and he just looked at me and he said, you sucker. Like that.
But while authorities were cracking down, the mafia was also crumbling from the inside. The unwritten code of never ratting on the family went out the window. One of the first to squeal was drug runner Henry Hill. You've been described as the biggest rat in mob history.
Yeah, well, the biggest rat alive.
Yeah.
I guess.
How is it that you're not dead?
I guess someone up there likes me, you know.
Please, freeze! Don't you move! I'll blow your brains out!
Facing the choice of lifetime imprisonment,
But I got nowhere else to go, Paulie. You looked in my eyes, you like it.
or being whacked by his wise guy buddies, Henry blew the whistle.
Could you please point him out for the members of the jury?
50 of his former associates ended up in jail.
Your Honor, let the record reflect that Mr. Hill has identified the defendant, Paul Cicero.
I know that I saved a lot of lives because every one of these guys were homicidal maniacs. I mean, You know, but it took me many years to forgive myself for what I did.
Between the informers and the feds, the Mafia's golden era was over. And being a gangster didn't seem much of a career choice anymore.
The new generation of young Italians wanted to be doctors and lawyers and businessmen. They didn't want to become mobsters anymore. And FBI wiretaps for years began to pick up these complaints from the leaders of these families saying, where are we going to get good people?
It's hard to find good people out there.
Yeah, they would say, we're getting morons. We're getting the dregs. We're getting idiots. And cops and FBI agents could show you wiretaps in which people would whisper, I think the line is tapped. Okay. Or people would be spelling. They would say, okay, listen, I'm going to get the G-U-N, okay? And we'll meet on the corner tomorrow.
No, that's not true.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. I've heard them.
Quality gangsters, it seemed, were gone, and in their place came a brash new breed, flashy and fond of the spotlight.
That's me, Victoria Gotti. Hello.
The Gotti family invited attention and even made a TV show about their lives.
People make a lot of stupid assumptions about me when they hear my last name. Like I run the mob. I'll take care of it.
You find him not guilty.
All led by John Gotti Sr.
He personifies every reason why the American Mafia ain't what it used to be, as they say. A, stupidity. B, ignorance. C, arrogance. D, an insatiable desire for publicity.
Even when finally jailed for life, Gotti was still unashamedly playing godfather for the cameras.
You should have went there and told them, but listen.
When his grandson was being harassed at school, his advice to his daughter was simple: take on the bully's mother in true mafia style.
Do you want to wake up in the morning and don't see your son no more? Is that what you desire? Do you want us to cut his tongue out of his mouth?
Like father, like son. Now John Gotti Jr. is facing prison in what may be the last great mafia trial.
It's going to be tough to beat, really tough to beat. He is proposing a defense that a lot of people find kind of laughable. The defense basically is, I learned my lesson when I went to jail in 1999 for racketeering, and I decided I want no more of this life. So I resigned. I left the mafia.
The garlic smells good.
You can eat something, right?
Sure.
Okay, cool.
Never say no to you, Henry.
Not many people leave the mafia and live to tell the tale. Henry Hill is one of the few. He now writes cookbooks, film scripts, and sells his own pasta sauce.
For an old man, I'm doing okay. I'm alive.
You are alive, indeed. Old mobsters like Henry Hill and the mafia of the movies may belong to a different era. But where there's money, there is always crime. Never underestimate a new mafia coming up with a new scam. Would you say the good guys have won, or are they winning?
Oh, the good guys have won. There's no question about that. The question is, can they keep it?
And as long as there is money to be made, there's going to be a mafia. Yes, we've had tremendous success in taking down some of these groups, but they have morphed themselves and they have regrouped, and they want you to think that they are indeed dead, but they're not dead. They're just simply out there, still making their money, growing as we speak.
Hello, I'm Tom Steinfort. Thank you for watching 60 Minutes Australia. Subscribe to our channel now for brand new stories and exclusive clips every week. And don't miss out on our extra minutes segments and full episodes of 60 Minutes, which are on 9now.com.au and the 9Now app.